Hello, and welcome to this video. My name is John Waller. I'm a program manager here with the Arrowhead Center, and I help with the New Mexico FAST program. We help small businesses get SBIR and STTR funding through the federal government. So if you aren't sure what that means, don't worry about it. I'll explain that first, and then we'll jump into the content for today. We are talking about the 2025 TechConnect conference that happened in June. So let me rewind a little bit. The New Mexico FAST program is a program that helps small businesses get to SBIR and STTR. FAST is the federal and state technology. We are federally funded through the Small Business Administration to help you at no cost to you get to these federal funding opportunities. Now, if you haven't heard of SBIR or STTR before, there is a lot to it, and I will just give you a very brief introduction to that right now. SBIR stands for the Small Business Innovative Research Program, and the STTR is the Small Business Technology Transfer Program. And you will see me refer to SBIR throughout this presentation. It is SBIR and STTR. The agencies that do one, some of them also participate in the other. I won't get into all of the details in this video. We have other videos about that. But as a quick introduction, I wanted to let you know what you're getting into before we share the content. So as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we are going to be talking about the 2025 TechConnect conference, specifically the SBIR and STTR portion of that conference that happened in June of this year. This is broken down over 3 days. We're going to talk about each day and then each session that happened per day. The very first thing that they did to get us started was an SBIR 101, and that's just an introductory presentation to make sure everybody is on the same page about what SBIR is. Now, this is very similar content to what we have in several other videos. I'll link one of those below. Feel free to go check that out if this is your first time hearing about SBIR. The very next presentation that they had was the agency reverse pitches. Now, if you aren't familiar with these agencies, this is a fantastic opportunity to listen to each of them very briefly, talk about their program, and you can see some of the nuances and differences between each of these agencies. Now, for context, there are 11 different agencies that participate in the SBIR program. 6 of those 11 also participate in STTR, and we don't have all of those represented here. But we do have quite a few of them represented. So these are the takeaways from those reverse pitches, or at least the ones that I thought would be worth sharing. For the USDA, as the representative gave their presentation, there seemed to be a big push toward supporting farmers in rural communities as a whole. If you are interested in USDA, they do have several different topics. I believe that there are 8. 2 of them are specific to rural communities. And it seems like, based on the way that this presentation was given this year, there may be a bigger push to help those farmers and rural communities. NASA, in their presentation, gave some advice to anyone that is interested in applying. They said, make sure to align your tech with the mission, vision, and goal 3 of the agency. So you'll see this advice is given pretty commonly throughout the different agencies, but make sure that you do look into the agency that you are planning to apply to if you are interested in this funding to see what their mission and directives are. Next up was DOE, and they have a big focus on new R&D. Now, they're not looking for engineering problems. That won't be enough to qualify for their funding. They also want you to explain the impact beyond simply solving a problem. Whatever your innovation is, whatever it does, of course, you'll be solving a problem, but they want to know what is the bigger implication or the broader impact of your solution. You want to make sure to address the topic and subtopic that you are applying to. There are differences across all of these agencies. Some of them are more broad in the way that their topics are structured. Some of them are much more strict on those topics. DOE happens to be very strict on their topics by comparison to many of the others. So do make sure that as you are applying, make sure that you address that topic. Show them you'll know what the topic is about and how your innovation directly corresponds to that topic. They also encourage you to use their partnering program. So the DOE is the only agency that has a partnering program where businesses and business partners can meet on their platform to hopefully help both sides grow. The Department of Transportation says that there is a big push toward safety and infrastructure projects. So keep that in mind if your innovation is related to that. With NIH, and let me pause here and say that NIH is a component of HHS, but the majority of their SBIR topics are funneled through NIH. So I will be referring to Health and Human Services, or HHS, as NIH. NIH has sample applications that are available for you, and that is a fantastic help. Most agencies do not offer that. Please take advantage of that if you're interested in working with NIH through this program. Also, they encourage you to talk to program managers at least 1 month before submitting. You will see this advice across the board. Please reach out to a program manager, a technical point of contact, somebody at the agency that can give you a little bit of guidance on the SBIR program. But NIH came in with a timeline saying at least 1 month before submitting. NIST also came in with advice that you will see pretty commonly across all the different agencies, but there is a strong push for anybody interested to look at old solicitations to know what to expect in the new ones. NIST has solicitations that are very broad, and the topics that they will look at don't change very much from one solicitation to the next. So this is very strong advice for anybody interested in working with NIST. With the Department of Defense, there is a lot of variation because they do have several different components. We'll talk about this in just a moment, but they are the largest SBIR and STTR agency. They use LinkedIn to keep everybody up to date. So if you are interested in working with the DoD, go find their LinkedIn, specifically the one for the SBIR program. Now you can break down the DoD a little bit. They did have representatives from several of their different components. The first one being Army. Now the Army offers second phase twos, phase two enhancements, and a catalyst option to help out anybody that's going through the program. And they also have people that are dedicated to helping the participants in the SBIR or STTR program find phase threes. We talk about phase threes a little bit later in this presentation. Navy, when they got up for their reverse pitch, talked about the standard and open phase one solicitations. They have a budget of $240,000. There's also the Catalyst program that can work as a second phase two almost in the way that it works. They can also pull projects from other agencies if they see a use case within the Navy. When AFWorks got up to give their reverse pitch, now, if you haven't heard AFWorks before, that's just the Air Force. They relabeled their SBIR program to AFWorks. But they got up and said that they are interested in everything. So they are a little bit more risk tolerant in what they are looking for, and they're interested in new, bold ideas, anything that you've got that maybe you wouldn't think Air Force is interested in. It might be worth pitching it to them, especially in their open topics. Sometimes you'll see it called a CSO. They also have a program called StratFi and TACFi, and this can similarly be used as a phase two option as well. We have a few more from DoD here. We can break down DoD a little bit more. We've got two more to talk about here. The first on our slide is the Missile Defense Agency. In their reverse pitch, they really stress the interest in revolutionary technology. The next thing that really stood out was their beyond phase two and second phase two option. And then finally here, the plan to launch an SBIR and STTR specific website. It should be coming this fall, so we should be seeing that soon. If you're interested in working with the Missile Defense Agency, that will be an easy place to go find more information about their program. Our last one on the slide is the Special Operation Command, or SOCOM, and they strongly emphasized current needs. So they want you to look across all the agencies, or at the very least across all the components of DoD, to find current needs, and if there's not a specific topic, in these other agency solicitations. Let them know there's a chance that they have an opening for you. They're also very proud that they have a 40% transition rate, meaning that 40% of the SBIR awards that are given transition into actual products that are later purchased either by the DoD or that go on to have commercial success. The next presentation that was given on day one was the agency differences. In this presentation, a couple of different agencies have a representative on stage and they talk about topics to show the differences between those agencies. The agencies that participated this year were the DoD, NIST, and NIH. Now, the way that I have presented this to you is that I took all of the conversation that happened throughout the presentation and I condensed it so you could see which agency said it and then what I wanted to highlight from that discussion. First, I want to talk about the DoD. They did highlight that there are 12 different components that you are able to work with. They have open and conventional topics. So open topics mean that they don't have a specific thing that is a problem that they want a small business to fix, whereas a conventional topic means that they have identified a problem, and that problem is something they are looking to fund a small business to come up with a solution for. They want you to check the Office of Small Business for SBIR, STTR, and beyond. They do have Defense Acquisition University, which can help you to find the right route for you and your small business. And they encourage you to talk to the technical point of contact. You'll see that abbreviated as TPOC before the open period. And to give you a little context, the way that DoD operates with their awards is that they have two phases. The first being a pre-release, where you're allowed to see what the topics are and you're allowed to discuss those topics with the TPOC. And then there's an open period where you are able to apply for that funding, but you are no longer allowed to ask questions directly to the TPOC. At that point, all the questions and answers are made public. NIST was similar to DoD in the sense that when the solicitation is open, meaning when you are able to submit your application, you are no longer allowed to talk to a NIST representative about your idea. They have a general open-ended style for their topics, meaning they have several categories that they are willing to fund, and if your innovation falls within those categories, they will consider funding you. They typically use cooperative agreements as opposed to grants or contracts as their funding vehicle. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but for some context here, cooperative agreements mean that they will work a little more closely with you compared to these other agencies. So you'll have a little bit more involvement from NIST as you are going through your period of performance for this award. For NIH, if your innovation aligns with their mission, they want to hear about it. And again, this goes back to a topic that we mentioned just a little while ago. You should know the mission and directives for the agency that you are considering applying to. And that could be a strong reason for or against applying to different agencies. They will talk to you up until the time that you press submit, so they do not have a blackout period as some of these others do. And as we just saw with DoD and NIST, they do offer annotated forms and rubrics that's used in review. You have access to those up front, so you know what they're looking for, and you can use that to your advantage as you are writing your application. They encourage lots of questions, including who will I likely be assigned to? That's important because, again, different from some of the other agencies, instead of applying to a specific topic, you submit your application without a topic, but you have to explain the problem and you have to explain your solution in a way that they are able to align you and match you with somebody who is a subject matter expert that can review that for you. They have a two-step process as two peer review processes that happen in the review of your application. Everyone gets a summary of the reviews, so whether you win the award or not, you get to know what they thought about your application. And those reviews take somewhere between 6 and 9 months. At this time, they are looking closer to 9 months for review. So keep that in mind as you're applying, there is a delay. The next presentation that was given on day one was finding help. Now, there were less participating agencies. In this one, the only SBIR agency up here is DOE. The SBA is the Small Business Administration. They had a representative as well as a couple of FAST representatives. I mentioned earlier, FAST is federal and state technology. We're here to help you get to SBIR. There are two main takeaways that I wanted to give you from this presentation. The first is to expect delays. There were delays and are delays across several of the agencies this year. So keep that in mind as you are thinking about funding avenues. The second thing is don't be afraid to ask for help. If it's people you don't know, if it's people you do know, if you think that they have the expertise that can help you out, go ahead and ask. See what they say. And to illustrate this, they told a story that a small business had reached out to an expert in the field, someone whose name kept popping up in the author list on several academic papers related to the topic. And they asked if that author would be interested in collaborating and working with them on their project. The author agreed and joined with the business to help and boost the SBIR application that they applied with. The next presentation that was given was agency differences, specifically in the evaluation. So similar to what we saw before, we had a couple of agencies talk about what the evaluation process within their agency looks like and how that differs from the others that were on stage. The participating agencies include DoD, specifically the Army, as well as SOCOM, USDA, and DOT. The first thing that I wanted to highlight from this presentation is that across the board, all of the agencies say that there is a real person reading your proposals and it's not AI. I wanted to bring that up because there is some doubt out there about the ability for people to read all of the applications that come in. And these agencies wanted to make sure that everyone knows it is a real person that reads your proposal. And it is a real person that marks your proposal and that grades your proposal and that compares it to the rubric and gives you real feedback, not a computer. The first agency that I wanted to mention in this section is the Army. And they talked about the due diligence program being bigger than it has been in the past and that it has caused some delays. The due diligence process and the technical review are both done together, and that is taking a little bit longer than it used to. AI is recognized if you use it in the application, and now there aren't any rules against using AI to help you write your application, but it was mentioned that it tends to reduce the perceived expertise of the applicant. Focus on technical writing to support the foundation of the innovation. Make sure that you are laying a strong technical foundation for what you are proposing. They give you access to the rubric so that you have that as you're writing. You can see exactly what they are comparing you to, and you can use that to your advantage to write in a way that you would score highly on if you scored yourself. There's a good chance that they would score you higher as well. And everything gets evaluated and everything gets a score, and you get to see that score. Next up is USDA. They said to expect somewhere between 90 and 120 days for the review process. They also said that in a phase one, when they get your application, you get 3 technical reviewers. These are subject matter experts in the field that you are proposing. In a phase two, you also get those 3 technical reviewers, but there's an addition of 2 commercial reviewers to look at the commercial viability of your proposed innovation. The applicants, that would be you all, also receive feedback on the strengths and weaknesses from those reviewers. So you get to see the feedback, you get to see their thoughts that could help you if you apply again in the future. Similar to USDA, SOCOM also provides you feedback from those reviews. You get 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses provided from the reviewers, and you get to see that and hopefully use that to either change up, modify, pat yourself on the back. Maybe it'll help you on an application in the future. For the DOT, the technical review is done before the due diligence review. So they hold off on that due diligence piece just a little bit to save resources. They did say that they are a little bit short-staffed at the moment. Hopefully that gets cleared up soon. They also give you a checklist so that you can see what it is they're looking for, and they give you that in the solicitation. Applicants also receive a summary of the comments and a score after the review is done. So again, this is to help you improve your application if you needed to apply again in the future, or take that, use it, modify the way that you talk about your innovation if you are looking for other sources of funding down the road. And that brings us to the end of day one. I should note here that during the first day of the conference, they do open up the expo hall, which does have an SBIR agency pavilion, is what they call it. And so if you have ever seen an expo hall, you know that it's a lot of tables with a lot of different companies that are all trying to show off their product. And they do have that, but in one section, it's all SBIR agencies with tables, with representatives, so that you can go and ask questions either about potential interest or just how the agency works. And you can go and talk to representatives in person. So I'll talk about that at the end of the day two section. The first presentation to get day two started was about commercializing your SBIR technology. Participating agencies include DOE, NIH, DoD through OSD, and Navy. We'll start with DOE in this section. The DOE has 17 national laboratories across the nation. If you are here in New Mexico, you are likely familiar with Sandia National Laboratories and Los Alamos National Laboratory. Those are DOE national labs. And tech transfer is a very important part for those laboratories. If you're unfamiliar with tech transfer, they have technology that they have created that sits on a shelf and doesn't get commercialized. They are happy to license that technology to a small business to help create another small business with a successful product. The DOE labs do work with all of the other agencies, and so there is a chance that you will have a technology that they will want to buy. Usually it's going to be the other way around. They are risk tolerant, and so they are very interested in trying new things. And if you have an innovation, something that's never been done before, these national laboratories are interested in working with you to test that out. Next up is Navy. If you are working with Navy, they have boot camp programs on various topics, including private equity. I don't have all of them listed out here, but they do give you the resources that you need to succeed and to commercialize and move on to the next step, whatever that is. NIH mentioned the possibility for multiple phase two awards through their program. They also have the commercialization readiness program, and that is used to help guide awardees to the next step after the SBIR funding runs out. And then on top of that, they also have a consulting team to help awardees, again, answer any questions and to move on to the next steps. DoD through OSD guides applicants through the OTST process to accelerate phase three awards. Now, OTST is a program that they have that can pull technology through the program. They look for needs across different components of the DoD and try to locate SBIR awards that could fit those needs. Doesn't matter if they started in DoD or outside of DoD. And the idea is that they can connect you to the proper person to move your program forward or to move your application forward. They also have a big emphasis on dual use technology, meaning they want your technology to have an application within DoD. They also want you to have an application for that same technology outside of DoD in a standard market application. DoD also has several other programs, OTST being one of those. We talked about that, Catapult, Catalyst, and there are several others. that depending on which component of the DoD you're working with, they'll call it something a little bit different. All of these are designed to help you as an applicant progress beyond SBIR funding. The next presentation on day 2 was phase 3 with the government. Now, before I dive into this, I want to talk a little bit about phase 3 and the different phases of SBIR. Phase 1 typically tests feasibility. You apply to one of these agencies, and there's a chance that they'll fund you, and you can test the feasibility of your innovation. Phase 2 comes after you have completed that feasibility testing, and now you're interested in creating a prototype. So typically, that's where you want to be as you apply to a phase 2. At the end of phase 2, the next step is, in theory, commercialization. And that is what phase 3 is commonly referred to as, is just the commercialization piece of the SBIR flow. There's no funding directly from the SBIR program for a phase 3 award. There's no application for you to submit. It's just your commercial success. Now, that's one side of phase 3. The other side of phase 3 is any government agency, not just the ones participating in SBIR or STTR, have the opportunity to take an innovation that came from the SBIR program, either a phase 1 or a phase 2, and they can give more funding, not through a competitive process, and that can also be considered a phase 3. So it's that second type of phase 3 that we are talking about in this presentation. Participating agencies include DoD through OSD, AFWERX, Army, and NASA. We'll start with DoD through OSD. OSD is the program office that is predominantly responsible for the OTST that we talked about earlier, and they have a lot to say about phase 3. But the first thing that they wanted to do was warn you that people will tell you that phase 3s aren't real, or simply that phase 3s are only the commercialization or the commercial success of a product, and that is not entirely true. A phase 3 can be any funding that derives from, extends, or completes a phase 1 or phase 2 project. It does have the same intellectual property rights as a standard SBIR. All of that still applies in a phase 3. There are no limits to the number of phase 3 awards that you can get. There are also no restrictions on the time in between a phase 1 or 2 and its progression to a phase 3. They did give some recommendations. First, go into a phase 1 with the goal of getting a phase 3, and then lay the groundwork early by talking to agencies about your technology. If you know who you want as your end customer, specifically within DoD, start that conversation early. It does take quite a bit of time for the different components to earmark or set aside funding for things that they want to purchase. And by starting that conversation early, they can work on getting the funds ready and laying out the groundwork even before your technology is ready for them to purchase it. AFWERX has the SBIR Technology Acceleration Program. They call it TAP, and this is used to help assess the commercial viability of a product. By using this approach, it's a little bit easier to find either someone to purchase your innovation within the DoD or to find the commercial viability that would help you progress into the standard market as well. By going through the SBIR program, you can become a sole source supplier without going through any of the competition that businesses typically have to go through in order to become a supplier for the government. And so here we talk about the justification and approval forms, or J&As, that you can skip by going through the SBIR program. In the Army, they say that the technical point of contact, or the TPOC, should be mentoring you along the way. They should be coaching you. They should be helping you reach out and make those connections with other agencies or in the commercial market as well. The awardee should also ask the TPOC for DoD customer ideas. So reach out to them, let them know that you're interested in selling to the government. They should have ideas at least on where to start and who to talk to find a customer within the government. NASA recommends awardees include the phase 3 in their commercialization plans. So again, if we look at advice that was given just a little bit earlier, think about the phase 3, think about that commercialization piece as you are starting at the very beginning with a phase 1 as you're writing that commercialization plan. The next presentation was how the government drives SBIR success, which is really how to make SBIR work for you. The agencies that participated were all DoD, actually, in this case, but they were split up between SpaceWorks, which is Space Force, DARPA, and Army. So we'll start with DARPA. DARPA encouraged very early stage ideas. They encouraged applicants to continue talking to the agency that they're interested in, even if you don't see topics that are available or that are a good fit for you right now. It could lead to better opportunities in the future. And we've heard that advice from some of the other agencies a little bit earlier as well. They also have a general goal to keep moving into new areas. So DARPA is interested in new stuff, things they haven't done before. If you've got an innovation that no one else is working on, DARPA might be the best option for you. Because they are relatively small, they're also more willing to take risks on new technology. Again, if you're working on something that's brand new, look into DARPA. And if you are interested in working with DARPA, DARPA Connect is the best way to do that. So you go into Google, look up DARPA Connect. That's going to be what they call the front door into working with DARPA. Similar to DARPA, SpaceWorks has their front door. It's called Space Force Command. So if you are interested in working with Space Force through the SpaceWorks program, which is their SBIR program, that's where you'll go to look. They also recommend sharing your capability statement with potential customers early and often, and that could also result in seeing some solicitations that look tailor-made just for you. Army encourages you to look at the Army Research Lab in their open topics because you might see some openings for you to get your technology in there as well. In each of these cases, we are talking more about open topics or a little bit more on the open-ended side of things. DARPA, Space Force, and Army in these examples are not talking about their conventional topics. They're not talking about topics that have a specific need that you need to address. They're talking about the opportunity for you to bring the problem and the solution so that they can see new things that maybe they haven't considered yet. The next presentation was about revenue generation for SBIR technology. And the main point here was, what can you do to commercialize your tech outside of SBIR funding or outside of the government? No agencies represented at this panel. These were all outside personnel. I brought all of their recommendations together and put them into what I hope is an easier format for you all. First, they recommended look for other opportunities. It could be challenge.gov, Tradewind AI, or Special Operations Command. It was also recommended to look at usaspending.gov to see who your competitors are in the space that you're working in. So looking at that, ask yourself, can you compete with their prices? If you can't compete with their prices, can you at least outdo their value in such a way that it justifies the government spending more money on your innovation compared to what they're already spending? Later stage technology can still get funding through BAAs, that's broad agency announcements, outside of SBIR. So SBIR is not the only funding avenue that is open for small businesses. You can look at other funding opportunities and their BAAs as well. Some recommendations were even given here specifically. Look for Air Force Research Lab and Army Research Labs. There are several others. We talked earlier about Department of Energy research labs as well. You can find several different types of research labs funded by these government agencies. It is also recommended to not worry much about patenting your idea. This is a little bit controversial of an idea, but the recommendation was Don't worry about patenting because once you patent, all that information is made public. The recommendation is to keep everything a trade secret. If you keep it a secret, nobody can take it from you. Finally, I wanted to mention the SBIR Agency Pavilion. As I mentioned a little bit earlier in the presentation, this is an area where all of the agencies who have a representative present get a table and you can go and ask them questions in person. I wanted to talk about a few of the conversations that I had with these different agencies. First, we'll talk about USDA. Some of the updates that they had include the fact that they were not able to get a phase 2 solicitation out last year, so that's in 2024, meaning that they prioritized that this year, 2025. And as I am a little bit late recording this video, they prioritized the phase 2 opportunity, and that has been released at the time of recording this video. They also said because there was a delay and because they were slow getting out that phase 2 that should have gone out last year, this year, don't expect to see a phase 1 opportunity. Everything should be back on track by next year. When speaking with the DOE, the most important part that I wanted to bring out to you all is there are also delays expected in DOE. And actually, at the time of recording this, we are seeing these delays. So they expected delays in their phase 1 release 1. And for a little context, DOE releases 2 solicitations per year. We are currently in the period for their first solicitation, and it has not been released yet. We were expecting that a couple of weeks ago. The Department of Transportation says that their budget has been stable. Nothing has really changed. There have been some challenges that came up when putting together their 2025 Phase 2 opportunity. There has also been a change this year in that their pitch day portion, this was typically part of their application, has been removed from the application this year, and it's unknown if they will bring it back or if it will continue to be removed from future solicitation cycles. We'll see more about that next year. NIST says that budget cuts have not interfered with their SBIR program and that there don't seem to be any delays. They are still on track to release a new solicitation a little bit later this year. NIH says that reauthorization is expected to temporarily slow down future funding. Also, the due diligence process has been a little bit more taxing than it has been in the past, and so to expect some delays and to consider it almost another layer of review on top of the 2 peer review cycles that I talked about a little earlier in the presentation. The representative from NASA let me know that their phase 1 award decisions had been delayed for this year. At the time of recording this, those decisions should have gone out, hopefully. So if you were waiting on that, hopefully you have that decision by now. NASA also let me know that they are moving more toward partnerships instead of in-house space programs. So they are looking more toward partner with other businesses as opposed to actually launching any rockets themselves. And that brings us to the end of day 2 and the beginning of day 3, which is only a half day. So we are on the home stretch here. In day 3, the first presentation they gave was working with defense primes. As it sounds, this is all about working with the defense primes and what's it like to work with them, how to get started. Agency representatives, we had the Department of Defense of the DoD's OSD representative, and we also had the primes, so Boeing, Lockheed Martin, BAE Systems, and SAC. The advice from these representatives was all pretty similar, so I just condensed them all into this one slide. First, they almost all talked about the need or the necessity for someone to start talking to those primes early on about the technology. It may not be ready yet. You may be very early. You may not have anything to show them, but talk to them, get their interest. They want to know what it is you're working on. Those primes are also happy to write letters of support for you if it's technology that they want. The letters of support that they write can go a long way when you are looking at phase 1 and phase 2 application success. So If there's something that they are interested in, make sure that you let them know you're working on it. Before you reach out to them, do a little bit of research on who it is that you're going to be talking to. Find out who is the head of the department where you need to go and present. Make sure that the way that you're talking aligns with interests that they have and interests of the department and with the prime as a whole. It's also important to note here that the primes want your technology. It's also important to note here that the innovations that are coming out of small businesses are beyond what most of these primes can do on their own, simply because small businesses have the flexibility to pivot and change direction more easily than primes can. The final presentation in this conference was an Ask Me Anything, and so instead of having a description or showing you the agencies that were represented, I just put everything here on this one slide. The key points to take away from this presentation: first, DoD likes high-risk projects. They are risk tolerant. They are interested in things that could fail. When gathering letters of support, prioritize letters of support from defense customers before civilian customers. They are interested in that dual-use technology, so it's important to have both. But if you could only get one, prioritize defense customers first. USDA talks about how applicants are encouraged to submit multiple letters of support. It seems like that has been lacking in several applicants' applications, and they really want you to go out, get letters of support from people that would be interested in having your innovation if you had the physical product today. I wanted to highlight from NIH that they are the only agency in SBIR and STTR that offer all three types of award systems. They have grants, they have contracts, and they have cooperative agreements. Finally, just a couple of key takeaways from this conference. The first one is do your research on who would be most interested in your tech. And then as soon as you find one agency or multiple agencies that you think would be a really good fit for you, communicate with them early and often. Let them know what it is you're working on, what stage you're in, and what you're looking for next. Also, expect some delays in 2025. We know that we've seen several agencies were slowed down or delayed last year. That's carried over into this year, and there is a chance that we will still see some delays moving into next year. So keep an eye out. The standard solicitation cycles that you are used to may not follow the way that you would expect. If you have any questions about the information that I talked about in this presentation, or if you are interested in learning more about SBIR and STTR opportunities, please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you about anything SBIR related. Thank you for watching this presentation all the way to the end. I hope to see you in the next one.